Hi, thank you for checking back into the week 5 review of my success tips of going from being overweight, unemployed, and broke to a place of financial stability, being in shape, and having a job or some kind of good cash flow. If you've been following my blogs every day, my daily video blog, I've been covering tips, success tips, things that I have found useful, books, articles, things like that in the situation that I'm in, that you're probably in as well, may be useful to you. I know they've been helpful for me as I've been going through this journey, and I want to thank you, like I said, for joining me. It's hard to believe that this is week 5 review, that we've already been doing 5 weeks of this, and if you've been following every day, I hope that you've been getting some value out of the information that I've shared as well. What I want to do today, again, is to wrap up for week 5, so that if you don't have time to check out the daily blogs, that at least you'll have the opportunity here to look at on the weekly reviews to see what was covered. On day 29 of the first phase of 55 days of this journey that we're on, I had discussed meetup events and about social networking, and not social networking so much as actual physical networking. And I had recommended a website called meetup.com, meetup.com, and had shared that it's not a dating service, it's not a dating site, but it's a site that brings people together that have common interests. So, for example, if you're into, let's say, cooking, you can go on there in your area and you plug in a zip code and find cooking classes that have been organized by a meetup event planner in the area for people that want to sign up. And a lot of them are first come, first serve. Some of them are fee-based, some of them are free, but you can sign up and get out there and meet some people. As you know, one of the greatest ways to find a job is not just to apply through Craigslist or Monster or sites like that, but is to actually get out with your feet on the street and start meeting people, because you don't know who knows who that may be looking for somebody like you in the position. It's a great way to start. I had shared the story of how if I hadn't done meetup.com when I first moved to Florida and didn't know anyone and put myself out there, I never would have had the opportunity to meet my wife and to be in the situation that I'm in right now with her. Granted, my job sphere, or my job, not sphere, but situation is pretty bad right now, having been let go from my job, but my personal life with my wife is exceptional, and I couldn't imagine not having her by my side as I struggle through this and deal with this difficult situation of trying to find work and pay the bills and all those things. So she has been a wonderful blessing, and I never would have met her if I hadn't done the meetup.com events and been motivated to put myself out there to get to know other people. And you never know who knows who, and it could be a friend of a friend of a friend that might be looking for somebody like you specifically for a position in their company. So meetup.com, check it out, plug in some things, and see what comes up in your area. On day 30, we talked about perspective, that what people think of you doesn't really matter. You have to keep things in perspective. We always feel like people think of us or think about us more than they really do. And it's tough, because that'll hold you back as you're pursuing your dream or as you're pursuing your goals of doing whatever it is that you really want to do in as an occupation or as a profession. And I shared that, I told people about doing this daily blog, and some people scoffed, and some people said, well, it's just kind of ridiculous. Who's going to take advice or information from somebody in your situation? I mean, if I'm trying to get information on how to be gainfully employed, I'm not going to ask somebody that's unemployed. And, I said, I get that perspective, but I have been successfully employed before. I've done very well in my life, and I'm at this point now, but I'm going to get back to where I was and then some. And I want to help all of you follow along so that you can do the same thing in your lives. So I feel like I'm actually in a better position than somebody who maybe has worked for the last 11 years to achieve their success they have, because I'm in the trenches where you're at. And but I have to keep it in perspective. People don't always think about what you're doing or care about what you're doing, at least not as much as you feel like people might be talking about you or thinking about you. So have that perspective. Day 31, I talked about forming the dream team, where if you had an opportunity to put together an ultimate council of famous, or not necessarily famous, but political figures, people in your life who might have passed away, that you trusted their judgment, you trusted their advice. It can be anybody that you look up to here or in the past, and you can put them together as an imaginary dream team of people that you can seek advice from. And I explained that I got this idea from a book called The 1 Minute Millionaire, which is a book that was written by Mark Victor Hansen and Robert G. Allen. and had shared with you what they had recommended in this book, and that is, if you have a challenging situation, you need advice, you have a situation that maybe you just can't find the answer to get your way through it, you can form a 3 to 5 person imaginary dream team in your mind of people you'd ask advice for, and then what you do is you close your eyes, you imagine that person. So if it's a long gone grandparent, or maybe a great aunt, or somebody that you really looked up to. It can be a historical figure, whether it's Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King Jr. It can be a political figure. It can be anybody that you really trust or value. It can be religious leaders from the past, whether it's Jesus, Buddha, Moses, whatever your faith is. You can close your eyes, imagine them in the best way that you can, and then ask them the question. Say, I'm struggling in this situation. What would you do in my place, in my situation? How would you react? And I had went on to say that it's really amazing when you do this, how remarkable the answers are that come back that you might never have been able to think of. But if you can form an imaginary dream team, these people will come to you with advice, with answers. Granted, it's from your subconscious. I'm not talking any kind of crazy metaphysical stuff here of ghosts appearing in your room or anything like that. I'm just simply saying that if you ask the question to the person in your mind, your subconscious mind will create an answer based on what you know of that person. And again, it's somebody that you look up to, so it's obviously somebody you know something about. They will give you the answer. It's kind of like if you have a parent and you know if you asked your mom or dad, well, we all have parents, but if you had a parent that you know answers a certain way or acts a certain way, has certain principles or guidelines, and you know if you ask them a question, what their answer will probably be, right? You have an idea. If you can close your eyes and you can picture your mom or dad or whoever raised you and ask them a question, and you know pretty darn close the answer that they would give to that question because you know a lot about them. Well, you can use that to your advantage. You can use that as a powerful tool in your current situation of being unemployed or trying to get in shape or trying to get money, getting from a place of being broke and living paycheck to paycheck, by asking these people, this imaginary dream team, questions to your situation or questions that you need answered. So I talked about that on day 31. On day 32, I talked about the present, and the book that I recommended on that day was by Spencer Johnson, and it is the book The Present. And in it, it's a little story, kind of a kid's story, but some interesting principles or moral to the story of that you can't worry about yesterday. Yesterday, you can't change it. And you can't worry about tomorrow because tomorrow hasn't happened yet. And whatever tomorrow's going to be, it's going to be. But you can worry about today, or not worry, but you can think about today and live in the present moment. And as long as you're living in the present moment and not worrying about yesterday and not fretting about tomorrow, you'll be a lot more effective and a lot more poised and put together mentally, and be in a better position to move forward and get yourself out of the situation. So I had shared with you that book. If you get a chance, read it. It's a quick read, but it'll help you understand that. On day 33, I talked about stop being perfect. That too many times we don't move forward with what we know we need to do, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's eating better, whether it's asking somebody that we know if they may know somebody who might be looking for a position or for a person to fill a position, and we wait, we hesitate, we procrastinate because we want everything to be perfect before we move forward, or we do things and we do it with pursuit of perfectionism, and it always ends up being harmful to ourselves. Perfectionism is not a good thing. It really isn't. You're better to do 50 things as good as you can do. I'm not talking about slacking or sloughing off or doing a horrible job, but doing it as good as you can do in that moment, and then you are doing 3 things and doing them over and over and over and over, striving for perfectionism. It's very negative. It's a very kind of a slow creeper to catch up to you inside and ruin what you're trying to do. You don't see it coming because you think perfectionism is a good thing, when really it's basically telling yourself that you're never good enough and you can't do things good enough. So get away from perfectionism, and I shared with you on day 33 some quotes on that, or a quote on that, and how to avoid it, how to get past it. And then day 34, the last day of week 5, I talked about the story of the farmer, maybe so, maybe not, that it's important for us to think of what's happened to us in the past based on a long time frame, not just 6 months, not just a year, but what happened to you may be a good thing or it may not, but it's too soon to tell. And you may feel like it's a bad thing, but you never know what will happen. And it may take a year, it may take a year and a half before you see the full picture of why being let go from your job was not necessarily a bad thing, that it actually was a better thing than you realized at the time. And the story that I shared with you was about the farmer. If you haven't seen that day 34 and you'd rather just hear it here, it's a farmer who has a stallion that does most of the farm work, and the stallion actually breaks through the fence and runs away, and the neighbors see that it ran away, or they heard about it, and they came up and said to the farmer, well, that's very tragic. How bad is that? That's just awful that your horse ran away. This was your workhorse. This was the source of income for your family, and it's just awful. And the farmer said, maybe so, maybe not. It's too early to tell, or time will only tell. And so the horse ran away. A few days later, the horse returns to the farm, and the stallion brings back several mares with him, unbroke wild mares. And they corral the horses into a pen, and everybody's excited, and all the neighbors hear about this, and they come running over to the farmer, and they say, wow, that's absolutely amazing. Your horse ran away, and it came back with 3 mares, and oh my gosh, this is just unbelievable. You're so blessed. You're so fortunate. And the farmer replied, maybe so, maybe not. And then a few days later, a week later, the farmer's 17-year-old or 18-year-old son is breaking some of the mares to try to get them so that they're rideable. And one of the mares bucks the son off, and the son breaks his leg and can't help the farmer out with the farm chores. You know, it's going to take a real hit to the farm, and the boy is inside the house with his broken leg, and the neighbors hear about it, and they come over to check on him, and they're talking to the farmer, and they say, oh my gosh, that's just awful. Your son broke his leg, and now what? You know, he's not going to be able to help with the chores. You guys are going to be set back financially. Oh my gosh, that's just such an awful situation, isn't it? And the farmer replied, maybe so, maybe not. And a week later, the National Army came through town, and a war had broken out. And the Army came through town and was recruiting all men of fighting age from 16 up. And the farmer's son was passed over. He couldn't go. He couldn't join. They couldn't recruit him because he had a broken leg and he couldn't fight. And all the neighbors came over. They heard about it, and they came over and they said, oh my gosh, how blessed are you? How fortunate. Your son broke his leg. He doesn't have to go fight. He won't die in war. Aren't you just so fortunate? To which the farmer replied, maybe so, maybe not. We'll have to see. And the moral of the story, obviously, is you never know. A situation can be good and a situation can be bad. You just never know the outcome, or how something that seems so negative can end up being something so amazing and wonderful in your life. So if something happens to yourself and you feel like you're going to get frustrated, just tell yourself, maybe so, maybe not. Just have to wait and see, all right? So that was week 5. I hope you found it very useful. Tune in coming up here for week 6 and some more information, tips, and advice that I'm going to provide. I hope you are having great success finding work, saving up some money, eating better, feeling better, getting in shape, just doing something better every day so that you start to pull yourself out of the situation just as I am along with you. And with that, have a great week again, and I will catch up with you next time.